Namaste, Om Namaha Shivaya. Thanks so much for dropping by this video. So, at this channel, I've been really deconstructing the Neo-Advaita teacher Muji, but most of my criticisms, apply to any Neo-Advaita teacher. And maybe not some of the extreme ones about money and allegations of having sex with students, but some of the philosophical ways in which I've critiqued Muji and pointed out that Muji isn't teaching Vedanta. It applies to any Neo-Vedanta teacher or Neo-Advaita teacher. And here's a really key one. So a key concept in Hinduism as a whole and Vedanta as well is just a fundamental concept is it's called the four aims of life. The Sanskrit word is parusartha, and I may be mispronouncing that. My apologies, my Sanskrit is. This is a fundamental idea of Hinduism as a whole, which we don't get in the West because because Neo-Advaita is not Hinduism. It's one little teeny tiny piece of Hinduism that's then preached as if it's the final answer, it's the whole thing, when it really isn't. And I hope this video will help make that clear to you. So, the four aims of human life. So in Hinduism, it says there's four primary drives. Like, what are we going to do with our time here on earth? What do people want? What do they do with their time here on earth? Well, Hinduism says there's four primary desires. Pleasure, success, which also means material success and prestige, duty or service, such as being of service to the community, and liberation, moksha. So again, for thousands of years, even really before written history, great yogis, sages, have looked at the human condition, looked at their own mind, and also, according to Hinduism, what they did is they literally just are able to perceive or hear the truth. That's where the word rishi comes from. It means one who is able to just literally hear the truth directly. And what they discovered is that human beings have four primary desires in terms of what they do with their time, energy, and attention. The pursuit of pleasure, the pursuit of success, which again includes prestige and money, being of service, doing one's duty for the service of others, and liberation. Now here's what so first of all, obviously we're not taught that in a Neo-Advaita satsang, right? All a Neo-Advaita teacher will talk about is moksha. Because most Neo-Advaitas are a one-trick pony. They only have one trick, they only have one very limited subset of knowledge, and they just play word games based around that. But so here's where this idea becomes really important. Within Vedanta as a whole, which is a system of awakening, contrary to what every Neo-Advaita teacher will teach you. That's not to say that spontaneous awakenings don't happen. However, Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, is a system of awakening, and it meets the person exactly where they are. And this is what's missing is the system of that. It's a system of awakening and meeting the person where they are. So, some people would go to Ramana Maharshi and ask him questions about business, like how to best conduct their business. And Ramana would just talk with them about that. That doesn't quite make it into most of the books, right? Some people, Ramana Maharshi would tell them to do a mantra. Some people he would tell them to worship. Some people he would tell them, yes, long for enlightenment. He met people exactly where they were. For some people, he told them to inquire. A Neo-Advaita teacher, on the other hand, will tell everyone to inquire, or speak non-dual truths, which are called, they've been labeled direct pointings to the truth. That's all they know how to do. And that's all they do. And it's completely inappropriate for most people who show up at satsang, according to Advaita Vedanta itself. So, so what these people are doing is not Advaita Vedanta, and it has nothing to do. It's related to Hinduism. It's like a fifth cousin removed, sort of, not really. Adopted. I think it's like an adopted fifth cousin removed. So why this is all pertinent is as long as you still long, as long as you still want physical pleasure, like as long as that's a driving motive for you, as long as you still want worldly success and material abundance, as long as you still want to be of service. Now, when I say want, where it's like a driving force for pleasure, a driving force for success and money, a driving force to be of service. As long as those things are driving force, Advaita Vedanta is not, or self-inquiry, the Jnana Yoga aspect of Vedanta, not for that person yet. This is a key point, and this is what every Neo-Advaita teacher does wrong. So here's a quote from Houston Smith, who not only is he an amazing scholar of comparative religion, he's quite, he's a very deep and awake soul. And here's what he says. Mm-hmm. One moment. So it talks about pleasure, desire for pleasure and success. It says, other goals lie ahead, but this does not mean that we should berate these preliminary goals, meaning pleasure and success. Nothing is gained by repressing desires wholesale or pretending that we do not have them. As long as pleasure or success is what we think we want, we should seek them. Only remembering only the provisos of prudence and fair play. The guiding principle is not to turn from desire until desire turns from you. For Hinduism regards the objects of the path of desire as if they were toys. If we ask ourselves whether there's anything wrong with toys, our answers must be on the contrary. The thought of a child without them is sad. Even sadder, however, is the prospect of adults who fail to develop interest more significant than these dolls and treats. So, this is a very long way of saying what Muji and other Neo-Advaita teachers, they're offering it prematurely. I call it premature renunciation. And it's much more dangerous. The other premature renunciation is just kind of like embarrassing and not fun. Premature renunciation, it's deadly. And it's no mistake that 2 people committed suicide at Muji's ashrams, because what he's teaching is fundamentally unhealthy. Fundamentally, it's doing violence to our being, not our true self, not the true self of Advaita, but see, in Muji's teachings, you can't even talk about the other aspects of a self. And in Hinduism, we have 5 bodies, okay? But of course, Neo-Advaita teachers don't even want to talk about that. So to try, Ramana Maharshi straight up said, self-inquiry, and what Muji is teaching is a form of self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is only for those who have no interest in anything in the world anymore. You don't hear Muji say that, because that would be bad for business. because most people who show up at his, so basically, Muji is teaching something that is for people who have renounced. But if he said that, no one would come. Because, if Muji started his satsangs like, okay, what I'm going to teach is only for those who have no interest in anything in the world, no one would come, or very few people would come. It's bad for business. So true Vedanta, true Hinduism, well, let me put it this way. Jnana Yoga, what we're talking about specifically is Jnana Yoga, the fourth aim of liberation. Like, it's not sexy. It doesn't sell well. And that's why Neo-Advaita teachers are doing such an immense disservice, because they're basically selling something that is completely inappropriate for most of the people who are showing up there. And to boot, then people get addicted to these altered states, because Jnana Yoga, self-inquiry, puts you in an altered state. But yet they can't maintain it because they haven't done all the preliminaries, and because they're at war. It literally, if you take up the path of the final phase of Advaita Vedanta, of self-inquiry, before you're ready, it will put you at war with yourself. And I speak from my own experience, my direct experience. And it's a key part of Hinduism, which this quote from Houston Smith just points out. You don't force yourself onto the path of self-inquiry. There's preliminaries, which also, that Moody doesn't mention those, because those are bad for business, because no one wants to do the preliminaries. They take some work. People just, they just want to get high. And Muji's just, what he's able to emanate, some Shakti pot, and then he has people practicing self-inquiry, and they get dissociated, and they feel high. And he's a very clever businessman. And so he's still, so it seems that Muji is, still stuck on the first two desires, the first two aims of pleasure and the desire for worldly success. So, oh well. Welcome to the 21st century, where, anyone can, well, that's what this channel is all about, is distinguishing between true Vedanta and false Vedanta. And here we have one more piece of the puzzle. Thanks so much for joining in.